Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Now, before we get into today's guest and stuff like that, I do want to say I never even thought to do this last time. I really should have done it when I'd previously done the show, but I checked the DMs of the Instagram and Twitter of Inkylesconvo, and I never actually knew I actually helped some of you get jobs and make connections. I never knew that. I never knew that until I checked it last night when I was at the gym with training partner discussing various different competition stuff, different stuff. But then we were talking about it and I was like, oh yeah, check out this stuff, by the way. And it's amazing. So well done to everybody that's actually, got somewhere and done something in life from who I've talked to. I hope it happens to the next people and so on, so on, so on. But today's guest is a different one, but again, with me being a football fan, and of all, not necessarily one specific team, just the game in general. I like the game. I like watching stuff and that. It was good to have a coach, but started off in from an engineering background and then went from different avenues. It's going to be good to take it from taking way back to learn how he moved to where it is. It's Derek Johnston. How are you, mate?
Aye, good, mate. Aye, good. As you said, quite a varied journey so far. So, aye, looking forward to this. Should be a good wee chat.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so we'll go all the way back. So what made you? Because you started on you kind of developed obviously your bachelor's degree in sports science, but then you kind of had a engineering. How did you go from engineering to I guess you played football and then kind of developed, and you kind of moved over to the career, or how did it start?
So, in terms of my career to date, I'm a time served CNC operator. So basically, I just normal Wayne went to school. Didn't really like school. Wanted to get out of school and into apprenticeship as soon as I could. So that took me into engineering. Done my work experience in a place called Worcestershire Bearings, which is a fairly big engineering employer in Glasgow. And my dad had worked there for 30 years. My dad was in there, so that's where I went and done my work experience basically. And during my work experience, the factory manager said to me, "Look, you've done quite well this week. Would you be interested in coming to work here potentially?" And I says, "Aye, definitely." I says that was part of the reason I came in. Work experience was to possibly think about it as a career path. My dad wasn't for me getting into engineering like everybody's dad at my age. My dad wanted me to get into IT because IT was the boom career at that point. So I basically worked hard to get my apprenticeship. Then after my apprenticeship, spent 4 years in my apprenticeship, although I got my papers about 6 months early because I'd managed to bar through my logbooks and things like that. So I get my time pretty early. Then it was time served, went on to night shift for a wee spell, done about 6 months in the night shift before I went back to the day shifts. Changed the machine I was on, things like that. Had a spell, obviously just working away and doing what you can, and actually get the sack. So I get the sack in Worcestershire because I was on the sick and went to a wedding stupidly, and somebody told the higher ups where I was basically, and yeah, found myself can't really say too much other than that because it is like non-disclosure and all that once you get back to places obviously. But to be fair, that was 8 years ago now, so if they're going to come after me, all the best to them. Good luck trying to get money out of somebody that's a skint student. But I engineering then took me to a place called Jet Engineering for 5 weeks. It was a wee plastic shop, completely different from what I was used to. I was used to basically just batch engineering components and making a specialised product because it was our product, Keisha. Then went to a plastic place that subcontracted work for different people, and it was just a different world to me. Didn't really like it, to be told. and myself getting into a place Mitchell engineering in Cambuslang. And that coincided around the same time as I was getting ready to get married to my wife Leonie, and we ended up moving into a wee flat when we get married. We moved into a wee flat, first flat together. It was in a wee place up in Halfway, Cambuslang, and 6 weeks after honeymoon, I got made redundant at Mitchell, unfortunately. So I found myself out of engineering altogether for 3 years, and that wasn't too good. Kind of jumped about for a wee bit. I worked because of where we just rented a house and things like that. We had to stay in the house in Cambuslang for 6 months. So to be honest, we didn't have the money to keep it. But we just had to see the lease contract through. Basically, they wouldn't let us get out early, so we stayed there until about November. I think it was 2016, maybe even 2015. November 2015, because we got married in 2015. And I was working at that point in a whiskey bond in London Road, just doing a 0 hour contract type job and just trying to get by basically. And we then moved in with my in-laws, which came out to Captain my wife's originally from. I'm from Pollock originally, and up until that point, had stayed in Pollock all my days basically. And I just took in a different path. I ended up once we moved to Captain I worked for another 4 months in the whiskey bond, but I was constant back shift, and a back shift was like 2 in the afternoon start right through to midnight. And again, it was 0 hour contract, so you only guaranteed shifts from 1 week to the next. You could have 1 shift 1 week, 3 the next, and things like that. So there wasn't any, like, you couldn't plan for anything. You couldn't plan in terms of money, but you couldn't plan in terms of just life in general. Kind of got myself to a point where I'm like, if I can get a job that's a regular wage, I don't care if I'm working for minimum wage, whatever, doesn't matter, just a regular job, and found myself doing a completely different thing in the content industry. Worked with Teleperformance at their site in Aviva's premises in Briggs. When it was there, they've now moved. I kind of took quite well to customer service role. Done pretty well, and within a year I was promoted from being on the phones, doing some inbound customer service, then some outbound retention stuff and that. Found myself going in to train people, which was cool because I've always, in terms of football background, wasn't much of a player at all. Amateur player, and that's probably doing it, not even doing it justice. I was a hatchet man at best when it came to playing. Get the ball off my teammates, let them go and play type thing, and coaching just came about quite early. I was quite young when I got into amateur football. I'm 6'3". The new, unfortunately, about 16 stone 12. And I was always quite a big boy, even when I was young. To about 13, I've been quite stumpy. And I get into amateur football pretty early through my brother-in-law. Started playing with a couple of teams with him, and then was finding that I was at that point where I was probably as well too young, so I wasn't getting games off, and I wanted to play. And me and my mates were playing on a Friday night. We were playing games against just boys for local schemes, basically. We just play random friendlies, basically. And from that, we kind of formed a club, AFC Bonnyhole. We started out, it was kind of like team was picked by committee basically through a few of us, and we just organised everything together type thing. It was me that kind of says, look, we could go and play amateur football, no problem at all, because we had a good enough football team. Some players that went on to play at the semi-pro level and things like that. Talking to you today, this afternoon, one of our boys is playing in the 4th round of the Scottish Cup for Clydebank, for example. So shows you that we had some talent in the team. And I just, from that kind of, I took on running the team at one point. It was the two of our dads took over the team once we actually went into the league. They kind of took over the management of the team, and we kind of, after a semi-final, we kind of held a bit of a coup between me and my best mate Baker. We kind of thought, look, this isn't quite working with the two dads. We should maybe look at doing something different. And the two of us said, well, see if it's just going to be trying to do something different. Something different could be us. And the plan was it would be me and Baker run the team until the end of the season, and we would get somebody in. But it basically quickly became, within a week, me running the team, because Baker's like, Dale, I want to play, I don't want to do the coaching side of things and that. He's like, are you alright doing it yourself? And I'll help you with a can and things like that. But so it just kind of got to me run the team, and I get the bug for it. 21 years of age, running a football team. Then it took me into setting up another amateur team about 2 years down the line. When I got married, I decided to be Bonnie home. It was just time for me to stop the management side of things. I had too much to focus on, obviously, newly married, things like that. You start to think, well, potentially starting your own family and things like that. So Bonnie home folded in May 2015, and by May 2016, I was a co-founder for Royal Union FC, which, as the name suggests, was a Rangers team. Still is a Rangers team, so it's pretty much a quite simple team. By Rangers fans, for Rangers fans type deal. We get the team off the ground, done really well in terms of sponsorship and things like that. The team was really well backed, and within about, unlike most amateur teams, within about 9 months, I had the foundations for success in there. A right good squad, got to a cup final, sadly lost it in the first season and things like that, and things were looking really good. But I was actually starting to fall into a depression at that time as well.
Sorry, yeah.
And just made some stupid decisions during that time that made me fall out with people, made me just make an ass of it. Just as simple as that. And I left Royal Union because it was the best thing for me and for Royal Union, really, because it was starting to cause a lot of friction between guys, and just made an arse of it. Big enough and ugly enough to admit that now, but I didn't really realise at the time that I was in a depression, and a lot of it was career-wise, that I became depressed because I wasn't where I wanted to be. I wasn't seeing what I wanted to be. And I probably made that mistake of being so young, and as well the engineering background. I worked for the place I served my time was the second highest paying company in Glasgow in terms of engineering. So I was at the age of 2021, I was earning probably 32 grand a year. So you get a lot of money there in your pocket, and then to be used to that, and then go the complete opposite way and basically half your wage doing other jobs. It impacted me in ways I didn't really realise until I started to commit my depression. Sadly got to a point. So from my depression continued while I was working in the call centre and things like that as well. I went from the call centre back into engineering, a place called All Access Engineering at Bishop Briggs as well. and it was the same. Basically, it was the same guys from Jet Engineering, but it was a different owner of the business. So went into work with them, and was there for a good wee bit, and it got my confidence back in terms of being an engineer again, getting to be on the tools, basically relearning my trade to an extent as well, because I was out it for that long. But I found myself during that time just doing, basically. It was just low mood, but it probably came to a head at one point when I was threatening to take my own life and throw myself in front of a train in front of my wife after a night out, where things just spiraled out of control. It was actually something I blogged about, but the blogs and things like that have been taken down because it was one of these. I didn't realise until recently it was a blog website that after X amount of time they wanted you to pay for it and things like that, and I'd just put it up for people to read through, basically. The way I looked at it was West of Scotland Mail a lot of times were not very good at talking about our actual feelings and things that we through. So a lot of my problems were probably caused during me being drunk. Between drink and, as most people know nowadays in Glasgow and things like that, drink's involved, gears involved some point down the line as well, and I just kind of got myself to a point where I wasn't enjoying life, and I had a lot to live for as well, which was a sad thing at that time. But slowly but surely, the right friends kind of pulled me out it, and obviously support my wife, my family, and things like that. And it was at that time, so I'd left Royal Union, been out of football for about 9 months, and my best mate Danny had said to me, Dale, you really need to get back into football. He says, because you probably don't realise how much football does good for you. And he was right. And probably since then, I've kind of been on a trajectory with football in terms of using it for good, both for myself and for others. So I went into a Sunday amateur team, FC Southside United, who were kind of like our rivals when I was at Bonnyholm. We were the young upstarts, and they were a team that had been about for 5-6 years, and they couldn't take it because we would go take a piss at them whenever we played them, basically. They beat us in one game and celebrated it as if we won a thing type thing, and then we screwed them the following week just to prove that, look, we're much better than you will ever be. So I got a lot of stick after Bonnyholm boys, and I took that job on, but it was basically rebuilding Southside United. It was Southside United, but all but name. So I haven't in there kind of used that as well to help myself out of depression, and luckily I have, and probably over the last 18 to 24 months I've really just kicked on. Football wise, what happened was I was working as engineering took me to a wee spell at plenty pumps in Hillington, because I'd done quite well. I started to kind of not get headhunted, but guys in the recruitment team started to take notice of me and would put me forward for jobs here and there and things like that to try and get me into a place basically where I would get back on to better money. And plenty pumps came up, but at the same time I was in the process to get a contractor role in at Rolls-Royce, which anybody in engineering knows the best job and the best paid job you'll get in Glasgow, and probably in Scotland in terms of engineering. And the day I started in Plenty Pumps, I was also phoned and told we would like to offer you the role in Rolls Royce. So I had just started a new job, because although I was of the opinion that's a hard thing when you do things like that, you're going, what's the right thing to do? Do I mess somebody about and and you feel like you're messing. You do feel like you're messing people about, but the way I seen it was, I take that job, and if I don't get the Rolls Royce one, I'm quite happy there because it was a decent job as well. It was a good company to work for, been there for a long time and things like that. And I get the job in Rolls Royce, and things started to pick up for me there. Just in terms of myself in general, probably for about 6 months before all that, I was getting better. I was getting going into depression. I was starting to kick on a wee bit in life. But when I was getting into Rolls Royce, I knew that it was a 6-month contract. I was going to say at best, but not at best. That was the minimum. It could have led to a full-time role if you'd done well. They would take you on full-time on their books basically. But I went in with the idea that, well, 6 months down the line, what happens if? So I'd got to that point in life where I started to realise you can't always just go based on everything's going to be all right. I'm going to be here for the rest of my days working type thing. So I went in with the idea of what happens if it goes wrong and you don't get the job in the August. And I was looking at, before I got the job in Rolls Royce, I was looking at college courses and things like that. And I found a HNC in football coaching at Cardinal College, and I just fancied it. And that's what I said. I said it to my wife, the main person I spoke to about it. I spoke to my dad and my mum about it as well, obviously. But my wife was the main one. I says, if it doesn't work out at Rolls Royce, that's what I'm going to go and do. I'm just going to have a complete reset, get away from engineering, and see where it takes me. And that's kind of where everything then since is built on. So went to college last September, so September 2020. In terms of Rolls Royce, unfortunately, COVID kind of humped that. 10 weeks in my contract there, we were notified that we were, because of everything, they were reducing staff. They went for planning to upgrade their staff and have X amount of new bodies coming in through the year to basically have to slash jobs all over the place. And because I was in a contract role, it's just second nature, innit? You're not going to get rid of your own guys. You're going to get rid of the guys that are on the technical years first. So 10 weeks in, we were put out jobs, basically told that we would get an extra week's wage. But thankfully the furlough scheme came in, and I wasn't sure I was going to get it. It felt like we were fighting for it as well at one point, in terms of the company that I was technically working for, because I wasn't working for Rolls Royce, but not for them, if that makes sense, because of the older contract work. So it felt like we weren't going to get it, but eventually we did. So that allowed me to be comfortable during the furlough period, at least. And because of the wages I was getting in Rolls Royce, I was basically paid the top tier of the furlough. So I was sat in the house for 4 months, 5 months, and was getting $2,000 in my bank every month. Do you know what I mean? So you're going, well, we'll just sit tight and see what happens. But at that point as well, I was preparing for college, and at first I got an offer for an NQ, to get into an NQ. And to be perfectly honest, had it only been the NQ, I'm not sure I'd have went. I would have probably then returned to engineering. But that was soon then changed to an unconditional offer for the HNC that I'd applied for originally anyway. And when they changed it to HNC, that was me made up. That's what I was going to go and do. I would take it for there. So that's in terms of engineering and how that then turns to football. That's a start on the story, mate.
Yeah, that's wow. That's some story. Like, especially when you're talking about like again, sorry to hear about like your, attempt on your life, and then your depression and that. That's I know people personally that go through that, like depression and that today, and it's it's not nice to see to somebody. Like, even if like you try and help them, you can't, because they don't see help as it. You can't really take them out of it. It's such a weird situation. It's hard to like. Yeah, so definitely hit home a little bit when you said that. Sorry to hear that, man. But like again, no, something I'm curious about is how did you, you were saying you were getting out of depression, but what was like, there was something that you personally did to get yourself out? I know you kind of changed your life around in that, but was there something else you kind of like, after you'd sat down and be like, I can't go through this every day, was there something else?
Reset me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, professional help, innit? Professional help that helps you, at least that can help you. I think the biggest problem we've got just now in society, especially in Scotland, is there's not enough of that professional help given properly to people. It's massively undervalued, and I didn't really want to get into politics because at the end of the day, I don't know your politics, I don't know listeners' politics, but
Yeah, you don't
when
have
we've
to.
got a government who underspend their budget and then want to point fingers elsewhere, for me that's not good enough at the end of the day. I think what happens is a lot of times people maybe look for the help, but they don't get the help that they feel they need. I was quite fortunate in that what happened to me basically was I was put on a CBT, which is cognitive behavioural therapy. But it's just an online course, stuff that you do in your own time. But I also had that backed up with a regular phone call from a therapist, who just basically checked in on me. We went through a logbook. That was only like on paper stuff we would do. I would go through a logbook with her and we'd just talk over things. How you feeling today? Are you getting better? Was your mood like over the week and things like that? And whilst I was doing that, I also through my football team. So when I was at Southside at this point, I was quite open with boys at what I was going through, because I think biggest thing you can do, especially when you are a leader, is be upfront and honest with what's going on in your own life, because a lot of the times it will then build that relationship and a bit of empathy as well with guys that maybe going through things that you don't see away from the pitch. And that definitely happened for me. A lot of boys would open up about their own circumstances, boys struggling with addiction, whether it be gambling, drink, drugs, whatever, boys having relationship issues, all different things. But boys would come to you because they're going, well, the gaffer tells us about it, so I can go and speak to him because I know he'll not tell anybody else. And that's my main thing. At the end of the day, if you tell me something, I'll take it. I'll take it in confidence and no repeat a word of it to anybody. Because at the end of the day, unless you want it repeated, it's your issue, it's nobody else's. And just like you've said, mate, when it comes to depression is a bastard to get out of. It's no, for all I'm saying, I get out. That's not me being, oh, look at me, I'm great. No, in the slightest. You still have days you're depressed. You still have days that you think. I think the biggest thing with depression is you feel worthless at times, and I even get that just now. Like I've no long had a wee baby. Well, I say I've had, my wife had a wee baby. But our wee daughters come into our world, and at times there's days where I'm going, am I doing right or am I doing wrong? And you question yourself. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of how I'd get out it as well, through the football team, the club that I took over in FC Southside United had really strong links in terms of being a charity football team. They played in charity leagues and they done a lot of charity work. They played work teams and things like that, and that was how they kind of started. So I'd say when I went in, I think that's one way we can kind of reconnect the club to its roots and start to do a wee bit of charity work. And we just pulled the players, because obviously when you do charity work at a football club, especially at amateur level, the people that do the work are the players and the managers and that as well, obviously the coaches. But for that to work, for what was my idea, you've got to get buy-in for the boys. So we gave the guys 4 options. I think one was Erskine, one was, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's a homeless shelter in Glasgow. The other one was Brothers in Arms, which is a male suicide prevention app, and charity as well, but the app's their main thing. And the Beatson cancer charity in hospital. So we pulled the boys, and it was Brothers in Arms and the Beatson that the boys, because that was closest to our boys' hearts. They were like head and shoulders above. I think Erskine was the one that was close as well, but even that wasn't close. It was like one had 5 votes, the other 2 had 15 type thing. So all the guys basically, we went, right, well, that's what we'll do then. I says, leave it with me then. I'll go and have conversations with both charities, and then we'll see what we can do for each other, basically, in terms of helping each other out. So went up to the Beatson, met a lovely lassie called Alice, who was absolutely phenomenal in terms of just her attitude and how she represented that charity and helped them in terms of their fundraising department and things like that. Spent probably 2 hours up there I'd went up for a quick coffee and ended up being up there for 2 hours just having a brilliant conversation with a girl. I'd done the same with Brothers in Arms, met Dan and Kieran from Brothers in Arms in Cafe Nero at St Enoch, at the back of St Enoch.
Yeah, I know.
Sat and had a coffee. I sat and had a coffee with the guys and sat for, at this point I am both in a depressive mood, but also trying my best to come out of it and doing my CBT and things like that. And sat and had probably the most inspirational conversation I've ever had with anyone, in terms of just seeing what the guys do and seeing where they came from as well, because they're the exact same as me. They've been through their own issues. It's not always depression for people. Do you know what I mean? Some people, it can be bipolar, it can be paranoia. Sadly, mental health illnesses, there's far too many of them to talk about, because we'd be here all day, Kyle. But
definitely,
so from that chat, it really just got the ball rolling for me. And between that and then, so I was doing my CBT, but I also started using the Brother in Arms Thrive app and things like that as well, and doing me different things. And I'm a reader as well, so I'm starting to maybe read the odd self-help book and identify things that could help me bring that wee bit of structure back to life and help me try and come out of things. And I was still drinking at this point, and that's probably the biggest change I've had. I made the decision. Don't get me wrong, if I've not stopped completely. I'll still have the occasional beer, but that's probably a goal for this year, is to just wrap those occasional beers on the head, because I spent the bells absolutely mortal. Just sitting with my brother-in-law as well, and it was kind of one of the ones where it's then made me go, like, just wrap that out altogether, because I have the unfortunate nature of, when I've got a drink in me, I am a wee dick. It's as simple as that. I can be aggressive to the wrong people, the people who care for me most, and it's really no helpful to me, and it's really no helpful to them. So that was basically it in terms of coming out of depression. Things that I've done were mostly just CBTs, started doing a bit of meditation, getting a wee bit more fitness side of things, done a bit of walking, bit of running, back to the gym. Basically all the things that people will tell you to do. But just because people tell you to do it, it doesn't mean it'll work for you. You've always got to find something that works for you. And the thing that definitely worked for me was reconnecting with people in terms of football. And from that, as I've said, in terms of my career path and things like that, it's changing and changed from college now to university. So I'm on a BSc in football coaching, performance with development at Edinburgh Napier University, which is in association with the Scottish FA. So that's the plan really. Get the degree, but within that degree, I also get my licenses that will hopefully take me towards being a UFA licensed coach, and then I'll go after the pro license because that's kind of my overall interest now, along with full-time employment in football once I put the other side, basically, education.
Yeah. Jeez, that's it's always like kind of like I'm a little bit speechless, to be honest, but it does make you speechless and make you think like you should. I am speechless a little bit. It's the first time I've genuinely been speechless on a podcast, but like the fact that you were in that, then you came out, but then you identified your self-destructing tendencies, like you were saying, you were becoming like just a completely different person. Then you managed to clear them. Now you're back in it. I never knew that connected with you first place. That's amazing. Good on you. And when you're saying something I can relate to though, I became sober. I'm 27 now. I became sober when I was 18, so about 9 years ago. And to this day, it's probably not the best thing to do to say to somebody that's trying to become sober, but I can tell you, like, to this day, I still miss drink. Like, nobody drinks around me. Like, people I stay with, they don't drink because they're like, you don't drink. So if I'm at the gym, they maybe have a pint or something. They won't do it when I'm around. And when you have that smell, you're still like, I miss drink. It's weird. It's such a weird thing. But even being sober for such a long time, people will be like, you must be used to not having it. It's like, well, drink is literally
I know.
addiction. It's a poison. Yeah, exactly. When you smell it, you're like, it brings back the memories. You see people having fun with, but it's being sober it brings its own heartache and stuff like that, because again, you kind of miss out on some stuff. Like, but at the end of the day, you're better, you're healthier, you're going to live longer, all this sort of stuff. It does have its benefits. But yeah, that's something that I would definitely like push to yourself, is that no matter even like how hard it gets when you can't have a drink or you see a drink, like don't go back to it, because when you go back, that'll be it.
Aye.
That's the thing.
Aye. That's the hard part as well in terms of so it's probably changing now in terms of how I'm changing in terms of career and that, becoming a football coach, because in terms of my younger days, I say that younger days, I'm 30 in July. It's not as if I'm old, but in terms of my youth, I was a football lad. Do you know what I mean? Like going to watch the Rangers home and away was my thing. Met my wife through it. Was part of the ultras scene at Rangers for about 18 months. Was vice chairman of the Rangers Supporters Trust for 2 years. Things like that. Football was my, like, in terms of being a football fan, and in terms of like the trust and things like that, a football activist as well. That was me. So when you change to becoming a football coach, it does help in terms of changing not the circles you keep, but the habits you have, because like just now I'm possibly going into management that would see me managing a Saturday. So next season, potentially, I wouldn't have as many trips to Ibrox as I would normally have if I'm then managing a team and things like that. So that changes just in terms of the things you do, because football's one of the was the first thing you do before the football. You go for a few pints with your mates. So for me, I go over to the Belhouse and Bowling Club with my dad and my pals and just catch up, because like with me staying in Curtin Talk, even my dad, I'll speak to my dad on the phone every week, but I don't see him all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've not got that constant going over, because it's a 16-mile trip from Curtin Talk to Pollock, so it's she knows, right, I don't drive, so my wife drives, but I can't just go, right, I'm going over to see my mum and dad because it's 2.5 hours between buses, do you know what I mean, as well at times, but the way timetables and that work out, especially at the weekends. So aye, that, and like those circles you keep within football, probably build up some of the habits that you have and things like that. And that's slowly but surely changing for me as well. When you're saying about the beer and that, but my wee way around that is I've got into the alcohol-free stuff, and some people go for you drink that for you just have a shandy if you're going to drink that or whatever, or just have a beer for fuck's sake, and because people don't realise why I'm not drinking. Do you know what I mean? Like my stopping drinking also to an extent coincided with my wife becoming pregnant. I'd started a few months before that, but me stopping the drink also coincided with that. So some people then think, and that's probably how I slipped back into having a few drinks there at Christmas time and that, and then more than I was having, because people were thinking I was doing it because Leonie wasn't drinking because she was having the rain and things like that, and then it's just finding a way of stopping the alcohol altogether. But to be fair, I've kind of, when the alcohol-free stuff, I've kind of found ones that I quite like as well, and they are like a normal beer. So when I do get that wee bit, like you're saying yourself, that you go, fancy a beer, and because it, especially as you're saying, mate, beer at times will bring memories back. So for me, a lot of times football and beer, there's memories there. I'm also, when it comes to football, I'm a regular visitor to Hamburg in Germany. In normal circumstances, I go over to Hamburg twice a year, and that's it. That'll be another challenge next time I go over, because as most people know about Hamburg as well, it's a bit of a party city, so it's not the kind of place you go over to for a weekend and just stay in a flat. Do you know what I mean? You enjoy yourself. So doing that and being the guy in the pub that's sitting with a bottle of alcohol-free beer will be different, to say the least.
Yeah, it's again, it's about surrounding yourself. For me, for example, I know this podcast isn't about me, but you might be able to relate in the sense that you went into coaching and stuff. I went into competing and losing a lot of weight, and now competing in strongman and things like that. And it's like you kind of replace that with the whole mentality of like, if I drink, for example, it's near it is. We'll just say it's 12, right? It's not, but we'll say it's 12, right? So if I have a pint, if I go to the gym now, if I have a pint, I've got training tomorrow. So if I get drunk, tomorrow training's going to be wrecked. Competition in 2 months is going to be completely ruined. It does. It's like, it's not so simple as like a lot of people think when they become sober, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not. It's literally like 1.5, then it could be like 1.7, then it could be like 1.9, then it could be like 2.1. But then it's not a ladder, but it does take a while to realize that like you actually have to, figure out why you're drinking like you did. It was depression and things like that. But again, as you were saying, your mates or somebody was saying that it was because, is Naomi, did you say that was your wife's name?
Leonie, mate.
Naomi, yeah. Does she drink at all?
Aye, Leonie will have a drink every now and then. She's not a big drinker. She never really has been, to be fair. Because she drives, she doesn't tend to. She was always the one, I'll just take a car. Do you know what I mean? And to be fair, probably part of that as well was because of my nature with a drink in me. That she's like, well, the two of you can't be drinking, because when the two are drinking, he's either a dick or he winds somebody up the ring way, and I need to get him out the pub.
Yeah. So that's another good thing, like, because if she's not drinking and there's not a lot of drinking, your place in that's definitely going. It's such a weird thing. Like, everybody's like, you don't have drink, but like, if you literally don't have that much there, you're not going to go out and spend tons and tons of money on it, or like drink it all the time, because there's other things you can do, and the fact you have a child as well. So it's yeah, there's like a lot more to it. There's very eye-opening, relating story. I'm sure people will definitely be able to relate to you on that one. Like that's it's, as I say, definitely, like, you should definitely be proud of yourself. Like, without a doubt. Even like the fact that you went from, you know, I don't want to keep saying it, but the things you went through is a better way to put it now. Is that do you ever find something I'm curious about actually? Is do you ever find yourself in like what would be good? You know, you saying you don't drive, so say you're on a bus, maybe listening to music or whatever like that. Do you ever find yourself slipping down that little road again, that you're like, oh no, here we go, here's the demons, as they say, coming?
So especially music and things like that as well, like I think everybody's the same. You've got certain bands, you've got certain things you can listen to that will put you in a certain mental state.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like if I listen to Oasis or The View or something like that, it puts me into that like bit of bad mode. I hate saying things like that because it just sounds so cheesy, but
It's
you know
true.
what I mean? Like, sitting listening to Oasis on a Friday, right away you're going, good enough, a couple of pints. Do you know what I mean? And things like that. So I've found myself, podcasts is probably more what I listen to now, because if I listen to podcasts, I find it educational. Whereas sometimes if I'm listening to music, don't get me wrong, music's definitely got a place, and probably where that music's good for me is on the bad days. I'll use it as a mood booster for the days that I'm feeling a wee bit shit. Put certain songs on, things like that, and it just helps me break out of it a wee bit. So I know I can definitely get what you mean by that, mate.
Yeah. So what would you say is like, what would be a good number? We'll say 3. What would you say is your top 3 coping mechanisms when you do feel like you're, well, we'll do 2 of them. I'll say, what's your top 3 coping mechanisms every day? And then when you are slipping down that, you know, unfortunate dark route, what's your 3 coping mechanisms that you're like, you remember then?
Yeah. So in terms of general day to day, my 3 things are go a walk, or go a run, and normally now, because I'm pretty much 24/7 in terms of football coaching, you can do that on the way to a session or even out on the pitch. So like sometimes I'll set up my training session. I'm always, because I'm a commuter as well in terms of getting buses or trains or that, I'm always pretty early. So I tend to be there. If I'm there and it's an empty pitch, and I can go out, set up my session and just take a wee walk about and have that wee bit of thinking time during that walk. I'm also a big reader. I'll probably try and read most days, whether it be reading a book or reading an article or something. Always trying, and I use that as a wee moment as well. I just take myself and de-stressing a wee bit. I don't know, have you heard of Mark Laurie before, the Neddy Scientist? You ever seen Mark's stuff?
Are they the 2 motivational speakers?
No. So Mark, if you call Mark a motivational speaker, he'd probably take a jaw right off you. But Mark is he's a strength and conditioning and rehabilitation coach in Glasgow.
Okay.
And on Insta, mate, honestly, search for Mark Laurie, the Neddy Scientist, or I'll send you Mark's Insta details after we finish this. But
I appreciate that.
Mark is your typical Glasgow boy, and I relate to him so much because he was another one. So like in terms of podcasts and things like that, I found Mark's podcast just as I was in that moment of going, right, let's get the head switched on to college and things like that. But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, at that point, Dale, you're 27-year-old. Do you really want to be the old guy at college? And Mark Mark done his own podcast for a wee bit, Raw Talk, and in that Mark tells his stories of being that old guy at college, and a lot of it was so relatable. And like we talked away and things like that, and actually it wasn't until a while back now, but at one point I realised I'm like, he used to work in the gym I went to and things like that. Do you know what I mean? You piece wee bits of here, but Mark talks about, I kind of went off on a tangent, but Mark talks about that. What's he called again? That moment where you're walking about like a fucking wound up kettle. You've got so much steam in you, but you just need to let that wee bit out.
Yeah, like the candle match situation. If you got light a matches off, it easy to light, that type of thing.
Aye. So you've just got to let that wee bit of pressure away, and that's probably two of my ways is by going a walk or doing something that can give me that wee bit of headspace, but also reading a book. And just to be honest, the last wee while, the thing that I've probably started doing is just being that wee bit more thankful and grateful for what I've got. Don't get me wrong, at times being a student and wife's on maternity now and things like that, you feel as if you've not got a lot in terms of finance and things like that, but still get a roof over our head, still get a fridge that's not full but got food in it and get stuff there to eat. We'll get a beautiful wee baby girl, get two lovely families, do you know what I mean? So there's a lot to be thankful for. Obviously my situation as well in terms of starting on that path to a new career, hopefully. And no, hopefully, because although I'm a student, I'm also working in the game. So I'm a paid coach now as well. I've got between my 4 roles that I do, I'm paid for 3 of them. Don't get me wrong, it's not a lot of money that you make just now, because being a full-time student and a part-time coach, you can't always, the availability clashes for things, and working at 3 different clubs, and I do one-to-ones at Oliver Performance Academy as well on a Sunday morning. So you've got time doesn't always meet in the middle with certain things, so a lot of the times I probably don't make as much money as I could, but that'll change as my career progresses as well. There'll be a bit of accumulation of roles, I think, down the line, do you know what I mean, where I will maybe go like drop this one off to do more here or vice versa. So I basically, my 3 simple day-to-days are go a walk or just give yourself that opportunity for 20 minutes. Just give yourself a chance to go and be with your own thoughts for a bit. And I used to like go a walk or go a run or whatever and listen to a podcast and that, but now I tend to, even during that wee 20-minute spell, so I'll when I go out for a walk, I'll normally go out for about an hour and listen to a podcast and that, but I make sure that I've got that wee quiet time period during it as well, where I don't listen to it and I just have a wee walk in my own head basically. And kind of use that to think over, is there anything that's maybe winding me up that I've not spoke to somebody about that I should speak to them about, rather than letting it annoy me. Then reading for me again is that wee rest, because it's hard as well. Like me as well. So now I'm on the grass at least 20 hours a week. I'm also at uni for say another 15 to 20 hours a week as well, but that's no including creating session plans, sorting assignments, doing the pre-lecture readings and this and that and the other. So there's a lot goes on in a general week for me. So finding these wee moments where you've got 20, 30 minutes just to enjoy some peace and quiet and time for yourself is very important.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think that, you know, that's it with myself doing this, you know, this podcast and then doing another one, but then having, training, 2.5, 3 hours a day, and then having college myself, hopefully was meant to be 3 years at uni, but COVID knocked everything up. So they were like, my local college was like, look, we'll take you on and you'll just learn here instead of having to go way down south. So I was like, I'll take that. So with that as well, and with, various different jobs and stuff, it takes its toll. But a lot of people do ask, how do you cope with it? And it's like, because if I didn't have all this stuff going, you're going to go down a route and your head's going to go down that route and that mental thing. And that's what you're kind of not afraid of, but you're aware it's there. So you're aware if you keep yourself busy all the time and you're always doing something with it, be like, with your hands or with like on your phone or just something, it's incredible the time awake, the time you can spend and the time you're going to save not going down that dark route and things like that.
And that's your coping mechanism for me. The one term I hate as a guy in football, and it's one of the most commonly used terms, is busy. Because it's used as oh, you're so busy, isn't it? Used as, well done mate, you're doing a lot. It's, fuck's sake, gonna stop doing too much because you're showing the rest of us up.
You're
for me, I'm so busy because I use that as my coping strategy in terms of I keep myself busy so that I don't wander off into bad thoughts or anything like that.
That's it. And it's, a lot of people don't realize as well is that, well, I mean, it's true. It's very true, I suppose. In Scotland, in that you do tend the busier you get and the more successful you get and the positions you get in, jealousy gets brought up. So, and instead of people, I mean, you correctly said it, instead of being envious, being like, wow, how do I get to where he's doing? If he's doing that, if he's doing that much stuff, how do I then get to that? It gets very jealous. Oh, can you stop doing that? Or can you meet? But then yourself. It comes down to like, do you stop doing that, or do you kind of distance yourself from the negative? Well, we'll just be honest, the negative person that's saying that stuff. Do you have to distance yourself? I can definitely relate because I had to like not get rid of. That's not a good way to put it because there's no harmony there. But I was mates with a guy from when I was 12 till 20, 26, 25, no 26 last year. Yeah, not last year, 2 years ago. Sorry. 26, and we're not mates anymore because of the negativity that he was bringing, and I opened it up to him. But then again, that's because he went to university and stuff like that, whereas I'm going now, but I didn't then, but I was more successful than him, and he thought, how are you doing that? Like, you've not been to uni. And I was like, yeah, but it's two completely different routes. You can't compare me to you because you were trying to do business and I was doing security and had company, blah, 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 blah. So you can't even compare yourself to that. It's two different things. We unfortunately split ways, but again, there's no hard feelings there because I know for a fact he watches all these, so there isn't. But it does come down to a fact of like you have to get rid of. Sometimes it can be the people closest to you to then realize like that's, you're bringing them down, and that's the hard part. I'd say getting through depression, and it's not easy, but it's doable. It's always doable. But the hard part is getting rid of the negative people and the negative facts that are there. That's the hardest part.
You very much become aware of your circles and how you can alter your circles. Like for me, for example, so I spoke about earlier on setting up the team at Bonnyholm. Bonnyholm, we were just all best mates. Like we grew up together for the same scheme, team for a scheme dream. That was the way I used to always say it, because we were just a tight knit wee group, and we would be in each other's pockets for 1 minute to the next. Do you know what I mean? We were school pals that kept the school going basically through having a football team. And it's only in probably the last few years since I've moved out here and things like that the boys don't have much time for me, and I don't have much time for some of them and things like that. But it's because of that change in circles, and for me as well, like I've got a different life to some of them. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got my daughter, I've got also dealing with all the different things we spoke about, and some of that is just like you create distance with some people. And like that doesn't mean that I don't still love the boys as my pals. Do you know what I mean? Like if they pick up the phone, I'd do anything for them. But you go from being best friends to it's my mate. Do you know what I mean? Like It's different. It's different, and I can see that even in like my life so far, how I've altered friends as well. It's funny when you're saying about like your mate was at uni before you and things like that. I've got that as well. My mate that I went everywhere to watch Rangers with, Jack. Jack was the one that went to uni and he was a student and all that, and we kind of grew apart. He now stays in Geneva and works for the World Health Organisation. So Jacko's done all right for himself.
Nice, yeah.
and we've probably, if anything, we've probably reconnected of late, because he's seen what I'm doing now and he's gone, I can maybe help deal it. I can maybe like guide him through wee moments where he'll not be sure and things like that in different ways, just because he's lived that student lifestyle that I'm currently living at times. But I'm like the most unstudent student ever. Like Freshers Week, what is that? I've been at uni for 6 months now. I would not know where the student union is in Edinburgh, for example, and things like that, just because, as we've spoken about, it's your lifestyle is very different in terms of what the regular full-time student lifestyle is.
Yeah, there's more. I will emphasize a little bit, because I won't get any backlash from mentioning. I'm definitely not saying his name because it's just not. Yeah, but there's more to the story than what I can say necessarily, because he was kind of involved with the company, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so there's a little bit more to that. So that's why we can't reconnect. But then instead of like, after we had a kind of, after he broke up with his girlfriend of 5 years, you student, and he actually went to Heriot Watt University. And he went from there.
I go to the Orium right across the road for it. Every Thursday we're up at the Orium to work with it.
Yeah, I know where you are.
So, it's a weekly visit for me.
Yeah, he went there, and then he moved.
Cafe in Heriot Watt as well.
Oh, I mean, the people there are like beyond the joke nice as well. But he went there, then went for there for a year, and then did a year placement in Malaysia, and got with this girl because it was only them two out there or something. And anyway, then he ended up breaking up with her, and then kind of took out on me a little bit, so I kind of held it back, and I was like, yeah, cool. It's, as you know, it's one of your boys. You don't keep your mouth shut, but you kind of let him express himself however he's going to do it. But then when he came to the apology, he kind of like didn't do an apology, had like kind of a go on me, and then I was like, hold up, you knew I was suffering, and you still took all this stuff out. It just came to like a big, and then company went under, and then he blamed me for it, but I was working 15-hour days, so I was like, how can you? It's not my fault. You're working 4 hours a day. I was working 15. So I don't really want to get into that, to be honest, because there's way more to that story than that's not what this is about. But anyway, that's why we can't reconnect. But I do have like, I don't want to change. Well, I want to change the subject a little bit because I do have questions I was wanting to ask yourself. But again, I'm sure everybody that's listening will definitely be able to relate to you, like 100%. Like there's no way, especially you're so correct as well. Like nowadays, especially with males, I would personally say that you don't talk about your feelings. It's not a feelings thing. Like, even boys in the gym, my gym's a little bit different because we're athletes. So I train in like I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but Jamie Barr, he was competed in World's Strongest Man in 1999 and 2000 and blah blah blah. I train in his unit, so there's only 12 of us. We kind of like, it's a little bit different, but you kind of talk about feelings and what's going on in your head because you can tell when someone's head's not in the game. But men don't talk about feelings, and I feel it's not, or he, they, or them don't talk about feelings. It's just not, it's not right. But I do have some questions I do want to ask you. As you were saying, engineering and coaching and things like that. Has that what you've always wanted to do, or was there something else when you were younger that you were like, I would rather have done this particular thing?
When I was a wee Wayne, I loved Fireman Sam. So originally I grew up with wanting to be a fireman in my head, and then as I got older, I'm like, nah. The one thing I did think about was, I gave it thought because I was told to give it thought by teachers. I was a really good cook. done home ec, smashed home ec out the park in terms of my practical stuff. Get a 1 for a credit 1 or whatever. See, that's the difference now as well. So many people have like different grades and different ways of saying it and that. But I basically top mark in terms of my practical exam for cooking and home ec, and so many of my teachers would just say, like, you should really think about getting into cooking as a career. But I had pretty much decided I wanted to be an engineer, and I was going to be an engineer. And part of the reason that I said I'm definitely not going to get into the cooking side of things was just realising that the long hours that these people have to work. I didn't quite fancy the 60-hour weeks and things like that. So I just that was probably the thought. But in terms of I really, as an adult, I wanted to be an engineer, and I wanted because of the type of people I met and the place I served my time and that. My perfect career path, had that ever played out, would have been to work at Waukesha Burns all my days. I would have been quite comfortable staying there until I retired. But what's for you won't get by you, my man, as my old dad always says.
Exactly. That's yeah, my mum says the same thing. I unfortunately don't have a dad, but like my mum says the same thing. She's just like that. It's like, even when, nowadays you don't get jobs or you don't do this, you don't do that, it's like, it doesn't matter. It does, because you literally don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But what makes I guess I already know. I kind of think I know your answer to this question already, to be honest. But what makes you want to pursue your passion, as in coaching and things like that, versus like, because engineering won't be 9 to 5, but like it'll be like we'll just say the normal 9 to 5 type job.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, mate, it's a sport I love. It's a sport I love, and my overall aim is, and it's a wee bit scary when you say this, I done a podcast at the start of the week, Soccer Coach Weekly, and I get asked the same question, like, what's your overall aim, or what's your ultimate goal? And mine is quite simple. I'd love to be the manager at Rangers one day, but it takes a shitload of work to be that. So we'll see. I might reach for the stars and just come out the gutter. Don't know, but I'll keep trying. So I really, for me, the now in terms of long term, but not too long term, so probably next 5 to 6 years. Well, to be honest, if I've not got it in the bag for the end of 2028, then I would be disappointed. Is to at very least be a UEFA Pro licensed coach, and at very least be working at a club in the Scottish Championship as the manager.
Yeah, there's no reason why that can't happen. That's the thing. There's no reason whatsoever. And because of the amount of stuff you've actually done and things like that, run a club, manager, all the other things like that, I think you've probably, I don't want to like jinx it, but you probably a higher chance because you've actually have the experience and the qualifications versus just having the qualifications. Like, that's the difference nowadays. You have to have that material, audio, video, whatever it is, background behind you, like the stuff you've actually done and the qualifications, not just the qualification. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
Most frustrating thing you'll ever read, and I'll say this for any 20, 21-year-old that's out there maybe listening to this, and God help you if you manage to get an hour into listening to me, but when you read that job advert that says essential, must have 10 years experience, still put your CV in. See if you've got the qualifications, but you can talk about yourself, somebody might just give you a chance. Some won't, but some will. So still put it in. Don't let that stupid line of experience, because at the end of the day, how do we get experience? Somebody gives us an opportunity, and that's how we gain experience.
And they say if you've got the gift of the gab as well, you can literally talk yourself into any situation with anybody. It's incredible, some of the stories you hear about people. But What would you
That's
say?
definitely something I've got. Can sell sand to Arabs at times when I really need to.
What's your biggest flaw professionally, and then what's your biggest flaw personally?
Personally, it's probably my narrow-mindedness at times, because when I'm set on something, I can be far too set on it, and maybe no listen to opinions of other people. And it's probably something I've reflected on the last year or so and realised I need to start listening to people a wee bit more. Professionally, my biggest flaw. This isn't me sitting going, I'm struggling to get one. I'm struggling to narrow it down to one. My professionally, I would say. So what would I say are my strengths, first of all, to try and identify my flaws? I'd say I'm a strong organiser. I'm pretty good in terms of planning and things like that, and I'm good at creating a good environment and a good culture, which is obviously quite good in terms of leadership, but probably, to be honest, probably that as well. So I'm a good communicator, but maybe sometimes not a great listener. And that's probably something I need to become better at. I've even found myself in conversations of late, like, so being a football coach, especially a football coach that's going through all the educational things that I'm going through just now, you get a lot of feedback. But I found myself probably about a year ago at times getting that feedback, but going, aye, and but this, and probably in the last couple of months I've realised, Derek, do yourself a favour. Just shut up and listen to what that person's telling you just now.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that one. More so, I think this podcast has developed my skill in that. But when it comes on outside influences, yeah, it's definitely something that I've dealt with. But not to take up too much more of your time, but I do have a question that I love asking everybody, because it's like it's very necessary to have this have this thought in your mind when you want to go into such a public place, like a public position, whether that be coach, video, whatever, personality will say. Do you think nowadays you should watch what you post on social media versus, to an extent, obviously I get, to preference this question, I get you need to be yourself. So you do need to bring that across. But do you think because of employment and, whether it be a public position, not a public position, do you think you actually do need to watch what you post on social media?
Literally before we came on this call, mate, I watched that clip that you just posted with Harry.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
It got me thinking exactly of this question anyway.
It's my favourite question.
You definitely do need to, because sadly that's how people judge you now. Is they'll go and do the background check on you, and the first thing they'll do in a background check is go and scroll through your social media. And to be honest, I'm somebody, in terms of career, I use my social media very, very prominently, because it connects you with people. And big part of football coaching and football management and things like that is network building. And I can sit in a day through power of social media, be it LinkedIn, be it Twitter, be it Instagram, be it Facebook, whatever. I can sit and speak to coaches all over the world and understand their experiences, get to learn from them. Like this week, for example, I have connected with the under-17s German women's national manager, Fritzi Komp, who was on Ed Bauer's podcast, and I just tweeted how much I enjoyed it, and from there I've spent bits of this week pinging messages back and forth to Fritzi and just talking about things in general, because we're both football coaches. She's at a higher level than me, so you can learn off these people at the end of the day. And if people are good in terms of giving their time, then it's always great to try and I wouldn't say emulate their path, but try and the thing I always don't know if you know John Johnson, guy that does the football mindset. works with a lot of football players. He's a mental skills coach. But JJ says success leaves clues, and I'm a big believer in that. So be it podcasts, be it books, be it conversations, that's what I'm looking for. Successful people, how many clues can I get from what they've done, and how can I use that to help me? So social media, it can be a great thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Like for me, for example, if I get to the level of positions that I want to get to, I know for a fact already there are things that will be brought up and flung in my face. But I also know how I can justify those things that happened. For example, with me, right? So 2012, I was, as I says, I was a football going boy, went to games here, there and everywhere. I was charged with a sectarian breach of the peace whilst at a Dunfermline versus Rangers match.
Right, okay.
And my picture wasn't put, I think the picture might have been put in a Dunfermline paper, because I can vaguely remember telling a cameraman to get his fucking camera out my face. But my name and address was put all over national news and local news. The Evening Times published my mum and dad's home address, but stupidly put that we lived in Crookston rather than Pollock, which led to much abuse from my mates, because right away they says, did you like them telling me you stay in Crookston because it's a nicer bit than Pollock? But it was just their error. But things like that, for example, I know that will come back up, but I won my case. I get a not proven verdict. And I get a not proven verdict because they weren't going to give any of us. So there was 3 of us charged with the same thing. It was right before the Offensive Behaviour at Football Act came in. So it was government-led arrests, basically. They were making the police make this an issue. And I can safely say that back then, they could have probably arrested me at most games for that and got a charge, and I would have been guilty. But on the day that they lifted me, I wasn't singing much. I was loaded with the flu, but still went to the game because I'm not missing a game back then. That was just my mentality. But yeah, I actually had, so I get a not proven verdict, but during the case, one of the undercover cops who was sat 4 rows behind me actually said I lied, and then when pushed by my lawyer says, oh, I omitted that from my statement. So things like that, for example, don't help and will be brought back up, no doubt, in future for me. But that's it. We all have a past at the end of the day. And what I would say when it comes to using social media is try and be cognizant when you type. So like say me, for example, I know I had to go back and delete tweets. Now, for example, I'm an employee at various football clubs now, so one of the first things when you get into any football club they'll tell you to do is check the social media policy. I'd cleaned my Twitter 18 months ago, so I already knew that maybe some of the things you said when you were younger, like that Facebook memories is probably a godsend that way. Comes up every post that you ever made, and some of them you see and you absolutely cringe, and the first thing you do is go delete that because you sound like a right wee knob. And then you get back and look at Twitter and you do your searches for certain words that you know you'd probably said, and you find that. And the reality is I'm 30 years old in July. I am a much better person than I was 10 years ago because I have life experience now and I have maturity on my side to an extent. I understand how my words can be seen in today's society, and I tend to live life based on a very, very simple rule of don't be a dickhead. And that's probably the first thing when it comes to social media that a lot of people need to learn. Don't be a dick. Don't be abusive to people. See, at the end of the day, see if it's not something you agree with, scroll past it. Because at the end of the day, you don't realise how much harm your words can cause. Like, for example, I don't know if you've seen this, Kyle, but so I work with Stenhousemuir's women's team, first team coach, and it's Stenhousemuir. We played Rangers 2 Sundays ago, and after the match, our captain was subject to 2 horrible comments from knuckle-dragging males who don't have a clue about the women's football game in general, and probably don't have a clue about women in general because they made comment on our captain's weight, when at the end of the day, this lassie could peg a mermaid in a phone box. She is a phenomenal football player. The 2 guys that put it on, one of them deletes it right away because he realises I'm a fud. The other one stands by it like some badge of honour. And I'm pretty sure even the 2 of them have realised that was a dickish thing to do. But that's it in society. Sadly, sometimes people type then think rather than think then type.
I definitely relate to. I can relate to that in the sense of getting it, because as I say to people, it's like if somebody messages something negative or if they write something that don't reply, I like the comments, say I appreciate your comment, and I'll DM them, and I'll openly say what I DM because it's not bad. And people that I highly doubt they'll watch this podcast if they don't like me, because it's my main social media that gets it. But I just say to them, I really appreciate your comment, but you do realize your negativity shows the fact that you clearly weren't brought up right by your parents that should have told you not to be negative on social media. And I'm definitely not saying the type of words I get back from saying that, but it's true. Like it's not all the time, but it does come a fact of true. You should have been brought up not to comment with someone, not to give someone abuse on social media because you don't like them or you don't like what they say or nothing like that. It's very, very, very like, yeah, you're definitely true. But the last question I have,
it's projection, mate.
Yeah, exactly. The last question I have, to not to keep you any much longer, but have you? And I have a feeling I know what you're going to say to this one, but have you ever had to face your fears before? And if so, if you have, how did? Well, I know you have. So how? And I kind of know how you dealt with it, but have you ever had to face your fears before?
I but the wee way in me can't help but laugh when I hear the word fear, because right away, as you can tell, I love sport. I love football, but I like sport, other sports, and one of my favourite films is Coach Carter. That's my go-to before a big game, and whenever I hear fear, I just think, "What's your deepest fear, young man?" I have definitely faced fear, whether it be in life, whether it be career, but probably the way that I've found to face fear is by realising that you don't take things you fear on alone. If you've got the right support network around you, and I certainly have now, because as we were talking about, you alter your circle, you find the right people, you create that circle that works for you, really. I've got the support network around me that allows me, anytime I'm not sure or I'm maybe a wee bit scared, I'm fearful of what comes next, I've got the right type of people around me that I can go, like, I'm not sure about this, what do you think? I can have the conversation that, like, I'm kind of going through that process just now as well. I've got potential. Don't know yet because I've not been offered that, but get a potential change in rules coming up, and with that, I've kind of had to have some of the conversations. Do you think this would be the right thing to do, or do you think? And eventually, you think things through enough to come up with your own answers, don't you? I think fearing things is something we'll have. It's human nature at the end of the day. But within that moment of fear, it's also just about realizing the thing you fear could lead you down a better path. You just don't know it until you've tried it, and that's something I've learned. Give it a try. Try. See if you don't like it. Worst thing you need to do is say, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. I do want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, especially you are one of the people I speak to in that genuinely is busy a lot. So I do appreciate it. But before we go, there's two things there. The first one is I want to ask, do you want to give everybody the listeners your social media? It will be in, I will get it off you anyway, put it in the bio and stuff if you want, but do you want to give everybody?
Aye, not a problem. So in terms of social media, you can get me if you are in terms of a football professional, things like that. LinkedIn's the best place to get me, and just search for my name. That's the easy one. But in terms of people wanting to talk on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, just search for either the Glasgow Football Coach, or the username's always the Glasgow FC, purely because I didn't have enough characters to go the Glasgow Football Coach. So in terms of anything, whether that be talking about football, talking about life, talking about battling through depression, whatever, anybody wants to talk, DMs are the old cheesy tagline of my DMs are always open. I love talking to people, mate. I love talking to people. It's something that I do on a daily basis in my jobs. At the end of the day, I like speaking to people. I like learning about other people as well. I'm probably not the greatest person to answer problems, but I'll listen. For all I said earlier on, listening to feedback can be something that I need to get better at. I can listen to people. It's just that feedback part that I need to get better at. And when it comes to time, mate, don't worry about time as well. I'm still in isolation until tomorrow, so if you've got any questions, fire away, mate. I'm cool for at least the next half an hour before the wife starts to go, you're meant to have a win today, hurry up.
Yeah, no, there's not a lot, to be honest with you, because again, you being able to relate to you in a lot of things, and I know people that watch this, because again, I do get messages from people and stuff like that know that mental health is something that again, as we went over, it doesn't get talked about enough, but it does come to the sense of even admitting to yourself or looking at yourself in the mirror in the mornings or the afternoon or whenever you look in a mirror, I guess, and being able to say to yourself, look, it's not that you're not well, it's that you're actually struggling a little bit. Because if you can identify it first, that's the next step, is being able to tell somebody, whether that be somebody sees this and messages you, goes away and tells their mom or tells, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you have. I think that's something that we need to encourage nowadays, versus instead of this shying away from it type thing.
The thing that probably helped me a lot is a change in conversations, mate. So thankfully mental health has now been talked about more than it probably ever has, but it's still got ways to go as well. But that kind of helped me as well. So I don't know, do you listen to Sean McDonald?
I know who he is.
Podcast.
Yeah, I know who he is.
So I love Sean stuff, to be honest, because just like this, mate, just like this, it's real conversations with real people. It's no somebody trying to sell you something. It's just an honest conversation. And the best thing I ever heard was a guy who I've been lucky to become friends with now, Aaron Connolly, who is the founder of Time to Tackle, which is a mental health charity that uses football to support people with mental health issues and things like that. But as I told his story on Sean's podcast, and I was listening to it in my kitchen that I'm sat in just now in floods of tears, because I realised so much that that's kind of where you've been. Maybe not quite as bad as I had it, but so much it was relatable to a point where it makes you go. And that was the moment between that and my wife saying, "Look, it's time we go and get some help. You need to go and speak to somebody." And those two moments kind of coincided within days of each other, and that was a point where I went, "Aye, time to go and try and get fixed."
Good. Something that this is the very like it's not controversial. Well, it seems stupid in the outset, but I know where the person, again, won't say who it is, but I know where the person's coming from. I tried to convince him to go and get help because, again, it's he wasn't quite at the suicide stage yet, but you could see he was going down that route. Stopped communicating with all of us, stopped really turning up to work. That was back when I had the company, things like that. But he said, "Kyle, why would I go and talk to a therapist when if I'm asking the therapist, if I'm opening up to the therapist with all this stuff that's going on," he called them the demons in his head. He wasn't like mentally unwell, but that's just what he called them. He said, "But the therapist isn't actually ready to tell me like what she's up to the weekend or where she's been, or if she knows that she's not going to open up nothing." And I'm like, well, because there does become, and then I stopped and I was like, I see where you're coming from, but they're not there to be your mate. Like, I'm your mate. These guys are your mate. There's a bunch of us, there's 4 of us, 5 of us in total there at the time, but I was like, they're not there to be your mate. They're not there to listen to that. They're there to listen to you and get your problems better. I can see where you're coming from though, but they're not going to tell you what they're getting up to the weekend or none of that. It's not their thing.
I get that though as well, because see, at the end of the day, the thing that gets you through with depression is human connection. Definitely is. And like for me, for example, and that's what I mean when I was saying earlier on about I don't think there's enough funding given to the right areas and for things to happen. So an example of that, right? So my best mate that I spoke about, Danny, Danny killed himself last year.
Jesus Christ, man.
Breaks my heart. Breaks my heart.
Sorry,
because but to be fair, once you then find out the story after, you're going, he wouldn't have spoke to anybody. I was his best mate. I would like to think he was my best mate, but I would like to think I was his best mate as well. And he wouldn't even have spoke to me about the reason that he'd done it. The reason that he'd done it as well, he shouldn't have done what he done, but it kind of makes you go, do you know what? In his head, it was the right thing to do because he just didn't want to get through pain anymore. And that was health related stuff, and it wasn't mental health, but it was mental health because of the health issues and things like that. So that's just hitting actually. Saying it like that. That probably sounds a lot worse than it was meant. It's not meant in any bad way at all, because it's just the way you try and process it in your own head. But thing
is as well, man,
I can get that in terms of
he'll have to he'll it's a strange subject, but like when you hear about something like that and when you hear about people doing that, it does, one, it thinks about your own mental health, but two, you can never ever, I've never had anybody do that like in friends wise and nothing like that, but something I have been told that's very relatable to people is my auntie was my best mate when I was 27. I think she died when I was 17. So, but she was like my best. I got bullied at school. She was like my best. Well, not outside of school. Inside school was fine. So when I quit school, it was fine. But she was my best mate and stuff. And she said to me, one of the last things before I seen her was that when I passed away, she knew it was happening because she'd got really bad dementia and she just she knew she was going, like she completely changed
Yeah.
herself. She kind of was developing that relationship with me. She said, the thing you have to remember, Kyle, is that when I go, don't be sad and that I'm gone, because at the end of the day, you weren't sad when I'm here. So why are you sad when I'm gone? Like, don't be like that. She was like, at the end of the day, I'll always be there and always have that spirit, but know that,
Probably get memories.
yeah, I don't want you to be sad. I don't want you to be sad every day, because if you're sad, it'll make me sad and all this sort of stuff. It was a very, very, very emotional, as you can imagine, conversation, but it's relatable to a lot of people. A lot of people remember that. It's like, yeah, okay, well, if that happened and she said that, we get where you're coming from, and they can pick. I'm sure you yourself, you'll be able to like pick parts of that and then relate to it quite easily.
Aye, no, definitely, because that's kind of the thing for me as well. That like when it all happened with Danny and things like that, we just at the end of the day, when that happens, your whole world goes upside down for a period, doesn't it? And the one wee bit for me was finding out that like my biggest concern was, so his way of sending a message to me and the team was that he put a love heart into the group chat that nobody really noticed, like, and it was literally before he'd done it. You find all this out, do you know what I mean? Eventually everything kind of gets unravelled and you find out the story of what happened.
Mm.
And in a way that consoled me a wee bit, because there's somebody moments away for taking their own life, and their wee thought is, I'll let my pals know in a wee way that I love them.
Mm.
And finding out as well different wee bits as what happened, then pieces wee bits, and makes you realise.
Mm.
And sitting here now with tears, trying to fight them back. The last time Danny would want me sitting in tears because of him.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Then
And
on you go.
it's just that's the horrible part of suicide. And if you don't get a reason, it's very hard. I know that personally because I'm the grandchild of someone who committed suicide and never left a note. My granddad, my mum's dad, done that. Left a family of 10 behind. And I've also seen, so I've had, like, in terms of my life, two people I'm close to before Danny as well also done it, like friends and families, like mums and dads and things like that, taking their own life. So unfortunately, it's been something that was why as well, when I got to that moment, it was in a mad way probably the thing that helped me most, because I never thought we'd get to that stage. So when I got to that stage, I realised, no, you need to do something here, or you're going to end up going the same way.
Mm.
And that's probably the redemption side of it for myself. But I just, I can't even remember. See now, I've got nothing that much of a tangent. I can't even remember the original question, to be honest, mate.
Thing is, though, yeah, I mean, I feel like when people do go off on tangents, you've said that a lot, but and people have said to me, I suppose I shouldn't really, I won't say who, but certain people when I've spoken to them on the podcast have said to me after the thing, oh, sorry, I rambled on about this for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I'm like, why are you sorry? Because there's no point in me stopping you, because at the end of the day, if I stop you, somebody could have been like, oh, damn it, I wish Kyle hadn't done that, because I was listening, I was relating to what you said. And especially nowadays, I'm not saying it didn't happen before, just the preferences. If you're hearing this now because I said this before, I mean that because nowadays people just don't, they don't express themselves. So the fact that you did, you never know what somebody could take from it. It's like be able to take, in personal ways, able to take some stuff from what you've said, and other people will as well. And that you can't be a lot of people tend to, like, I know I use the word busy again, but they tend to do a lot of stuff and things like that, but then they start to neglect their mental health. So they start to use it, I was saying it earlier on, as in a positive. So they're using it to be busy in the sense of they're not taking the time out of their day to actually focus on the mental, they're just shelving it. But if you instead of shelving it, if you kind of stop what you're doing, like what you did, and then get better, and then jump on with your career, you're actually going to be able to go further and faster and harder at that particular subject, whether it be football, golf, gym, DJing, so got a hat on, whatever it may be you want to do, you'll be able to go harder at that specific thing because of, you know, you've got a better mental health thing.
No, that's it, and it's definitely gave me a drive as well, in terms of my career and things like that, because go, do you know what? Let's just go on. Fuck it. I either succeed or I'll fail, but it won't be for the lack of trying.
Yeah. Would you say it's made you a stronger person now? Because you will, as you'll know yourself in that, again, I don't support one team. I'll go to any game. Like I like the sport. Not like one of those guys. I'm not like a die-hard, you know, Rangers, Celtic, Dundee United, Perth, because Perth's just up the road from me. Yeah, I just like the game of football. But see, when it comes to like when you do get to that, because when you do get to that position you want to get to, whether that be at any team, would you say that how are you going to be able to like deal with the negativity you'll get? Because no matter what role in life, especially when it comes to football, you do get a lot of negativity. You see it a lot, but the managers get it, the teams get it, the players get it. You've clearly said it on the manager got it. Do you know how, if you don't know, but do you know how you're going to be able to deal with that? Or are you just going to, do you think you'll just develop it at the time?
Same way I do now, mate. Just block it. Just block it. Don't put my energy. I just see it. I take the old heater analogy, but at the end of the day, you can put positive energy in and get back out that positive energy if you just focus on the positive. If you allow any negativity to come in, all it's going to do is drain that positive energy you get out of the other side. And that's, for me, like earlier on you're speaking, for example, right, because the circles I've kept and things like that when I was younger, I've got trolls who still come after me at times and want to come out with snide comments about this, that, the other. Battering. See if you're that sad cunt who's sat in your gaff on a Sunday morning and your first thought while you're out your head on coke or whatever you've been taking through the day, or if you're just bevied, and your first thought is, oh, let's wind up that ginger prick. Wow. Thanks, mate. Thanks. Because guess what? You're thinking about me, and you're thinking about yourself. And that's pretty much, when it comes to the negative side of things, I've already learnt all that, and I've not even got to the level I want to get to yet. And don't get me wrong, if I ever get to the ultimate goal level, the negative energy that I'll need to deal with, there will be a lot of. But my simple way will be to just blow out as best I can.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that then means, for all I use social media just now, if that means that changes at some point, we'll see. Because to be fair, that is the main way that people are negative these days. Because not enough people have the balls to say something to you in a pub, face to face or whatever.
So
they'll hide behind their pseudo names on Twitter and faceless accounts and whatever, and say a lot of garbage, but no back up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, you know, I do really appreciate your time, and the thing is that, you know, it's definitely, I'm a little bit speechless, to be honest, about a few things you said, but because it hit home a lot, more than I necessarily want to speak about. But yeah, it's crazy, and you know, again, I really appreciate you opening up, especially considering I didn't actually. A lot of people don't know, when I speak to people, I use, you know, LinkedIn and stuff. I don't necessarily talk about what we're going to talk about, because it's not I'm not coming after you for it. Yeah, it's not a news. I'm not a news agent. I literally do it to help, so I can figure out and help people figure out how they got to position, so then they can implement that and help people. That's all it's about. There's no questions that shouldn't be asked, nothing like that. So like we never prep, and it did take me back a lot, as you'll be able to clearly see. And I'm sure you've definitely helped people. So I really I do appreciate your time. And thank you for everybody that's watching this, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of proud people that the fact that you've managed to come out things and come out the other side and actually get in an amazing position, to be honest.
To be honest, mate, anybody who has watched this and taken anything from it, if you want to chat, send me a message. Send me a message and we'll talk. Because at the end of the day, this is success leaves clues, and I would like to think I've not been as successful as I want to be, but I've had a small level of success so far. Still got a long way to go. Still got a long way to go. And I might not have that success that I want, but the wee golden nugget in terms of how did I get there, it's quite simple. Work your arse off. And it's cliche and everybody switches off as soon as you say it, but you genuinely cannot replace talent with hard work, and vice versa. You need to work hard. If you're talented, that's just 20% of it for me. The other 80 is the hard work that you do to get there. And so far, I've put in a lot of hard work, but that hard work's just the start, really, for me. It's just, I'm at the building block stage in terms of career. So I've got, as I've said, 4 roles, paid in 3 of them. Ultimately, my aim is to provide a comfortable living, that my wife doesn't need to work, though she'll probably want to work, and she's able to then look after her wee baby girl, and hopefully at one point down the line a wee brother for my wee lassie. It's just life can be that simple if you make it that simple, and that's probably the thing that I've realised through my path so far, is try and live in the moment a wee bit more. Try and not worry too much about the future. Because you can only live in that moment because you don't know what the future's holding. You can try and make sure you get what you want in the future, but it doesn't mean you will get what you want in the future.
Yeah. And I want to, before I do end it, I do want to ask for your social media again, because although we have already got it, I know what it is. It's better just in case anybody's listened to, select parts to get it right at the very end. So do you want to say your social medias again?
Yep. So you can get me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram by searching for either the Glasgow Football Coach or at the Glasgow FC. And LinkedIn, just look for Derek Johnston and you'll see this ugly ginger coupon, and it will say Soccer Academies Coach at Rangers Football Club and Edinburgh Napier University next to it.
Yeah, and thank you very much, man. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate everybody that's watching. And the thing is, as well, is that as everybody will know, that you can feel free to reach out, to him or to me or to anybody. But more importantly, before you do that, I think you should just look in the mirror and say, like, I am struggling. Just that, even those 3 words, 4 words, whatever it was, just that. And I think that's it. So thank you everybody for watching. Again, thank you to yourself, and have a nice day. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.